This inflation creates learned helplessness in the younger workforce, as the skill sets are not being trained and taught for others to be successful. People are just being told what to do and not really trained on how to do it. In late 2025, the underemployment rate for recent graduates hit 42.5%. That's almost 50% of newly grad, the highest since 2020. We're telling a new generation that no matter how much they learn, they're still unqualified until they have spent years in the very role they're being blocked from entering. How hypocritical are we becoming as a society? Comment, what will you do to change that? Are you one of those students that believes that this is unfair and you don't deserve it? You need an opportunity and a chance. And to understand this better, we need to understand the skill gap. A 2025 Cengage report found that while 89% of educators believe students are workforce ready, 71% of employers now requires degrees for roles that didn't need them a year, yet they still rank job-specific technical abilities as their top concern. The question is, what made them change within a year this criteria? Are they paying more for the same job position? This is a good question we should ask those in leadership that made these decisions without any explanation. It's almost like we're gentrifying the workplace, just like we do when we put high-rise skyscrapers and we increase rent to move and gentrify people that used to live there, to put the new wave of people into a city that's going to pump more money. We see this happening in the workforce, and we need to start holding these leaders that come with this criterion and is changing the game account one by one. I encourage you to look deep into yourself, because for those that are above them making these rules, these gatekeepers, I'm pretty sure you have kids. Are your kids going through the same problem that those with less facing? And if we're going to talk about how a degree is so important, let's focus on the value of the non-degree leader. What do they bring? What is different about them? Is it their hunger, their desire to win, the desire to prove themselves wrong, to be creative, to be pioneer? Let's consider Henry Ford or Steve Jobs. We can also throw in there Bill Gates. None of them relied on high-leveled academic success or credentials to revolutionize their industry. They relied on their iterative, practical experience of building, failing, and living through the theory of the real world, which is irreplaceable. What I'm proposing here, that we should have an experience equity standard. Companies should weight 1 year of high stakes, relevant work experience as equal to 2 years of general academic study. We must prioritize portfolio over parchment. Why? Because the next Henry Ford could be knocking on your door and he can revolutionize your industry. You don't even know it, just because he doesn't have a piece of paper that costs so much money and gives you a piece of paper that credits you a professional in theory, not in practice. This leads me also to this ultimate question. Why do we trust so much in a piece of paper from an institution that hasn't changed much over a candidate who has successfully proven themselves in the industry and brings life experience as a way of validating their skill sets? So we have this dilemma about competency versus paper diversity, right? Because nowadays it's all about diversity, it's all about inclusion. But what does that really mean? Are they doing it for the right reason? Do they have the real good intentions? And I'll be honest with you, we have to touch on this nerve-wracking topic in HR today. The use of diversity metrics to look good on paper rather than hiring for competency, regardless of background. The problem is when HR uses diversity as a checkbox exercise as to looking good, or for whom? Acceptance from the public, perhaps? Hiring for race or origin to meet a quota rather than seeking the most competent individual for the job position. It's definitely a double-edged sword, especially in discrimination. It is discriminatory because it devalues the actual achievements of minority hires who now have to fight the psychological stigma that they were a diversity hire rather than the best person to fulfill the job. This leads to tokenism, which breeds deep distrust. Have you ever had a manager that you notice wasn't good at their job and that you could do better than them given the opportunity? In 2025, studies found that diversity hire who lacks the competency to lead, it destroys the psyche of the minority group, which feels misrepresented, and the minority group, which feels that the system is rigged. How can you trust the system? How can you trust the decisions made? Question is, do you trust how things are being done in your workplace? Comments? And let's not forget about how we filtering resumes. And there is an AI bias because we create the biases. We program AI. So guess what? You are going to have AI bias. So in 2025, research from the University of Washington shows that unless bias is blatantly obvious, humans are 90% likely to adopt the biases of the AI hiring tools they use. If the AI is programmed to hit a quota, the human recruiter will ignore a more qualified candidate just to justify the algorithm's fairness, quote unquote, metric. So what am I trying to say? HR's comfort over investigating beyond the tools they use. And I get it. You have to go through many candidates. But where is your professional ethic? If your job and only job is to hire the best, most qualified and competent employees and leaders, will you trust AI to take care of your child? This is the kind of responsibility we should have when we're hiring personnel. Comments? And just to prove a point, data shows us also that teams with authentic diversity, different language, backgrounds, culture, and including managerial styles, outperform others only when those individuals are empowered by leadership, and more importantly, when they're competent. Tokenism leads to lower morale and higher turnover. It's proven. If you've been jumping from job to job, you're a testimony of what I'm talking about. But what is our solution? We should do the first 2 rounds of any interview should be based on skill output only. No names, no photos, no schools. Let's check what that behavior looks and how safe you feel with yourself going in an interview, competing without having pedigree or status. How competent are you with yourself? How do you perform when you have nothing besides yourself? How will you behave knowing that you don't have the upper hand? This forces us to hire the best brain for the task. And also, we check the emotional intelligence of how this person survives these 2 rounds. We check the behavior. True diversity will follow naturally because talent is globally distributed, even if opportunity is not. But the question is, are we really celebrating diversity in the workplace as they want us make believe? Or are we just using people's identities as a shield to hide our inability to measure true human potential? I was actually reflecting about that last question myself, and it brought me to thinking about why we hire yes-say. We must address why corporate leadership actively avoids evolutionaries. Why are they afraid of having people that will not only challenge themselves, but they will challenge the norm. They will challenge how things are done. When they're seeking efficiency, when they see a problem, they bring a new solution to the table. Why are leaders afraid of that? Leaders will listen to those above, but not those below. Why? Because HR departments are designed to maintain the status quo. They want to keep those low, and those high. It's very simple. Look at the statistics. I'm basing myself not on how I feel. I'm basing myself on real data and statistics. This is why they seek yes-sayers. Why? Because these individuals are so predictable. Think about it. If you know that everything you will say is yes, how much easier it is for you to plan anything and have these individuals comply with it. And think about a person who wants to evolutionize the workplace. It seems like a high risk, unstable, unpredictable, unmanageable. Even if the current agenda was failing, they wouldn't take a risk because they would rather lose at their own game than having someone save them that were different than them. Have you experienced this at your workplace? When you had the solution to a problem that can save millions of dollars and save people's work, and yet the company went down. Toys R Us is a very good example of that. Managers kept talking about the problem, and yet the executives never listened. But I want to think about also the psychological effect, how this creates a case system for ideas. If solution comes from the bottom or the middle, and it is ignored because the leadership is fully invested in their own flawed moral, and model. This leads to moral injury for the employees who see the solution but are forbidden from implementing them. What happens is then the employee eventually stops trying. They do the bare minimum. They lose hope, leading to a zombie workforce that only works to the rule. And yet, those leaders that have created this experience would ask the employee, why are they doing the bare minimum? Why are not they exceeding expectation? And the leader should know the answer more than the employee, because they have created this psychological toll on them. And this also leads to a toxic environment. Toxic leadership has cost the U.S. $190 billion annually in health-related expenses. In 2025, 76% of employees in toxic environment reported that their mental health significantly declined. This leads me to the Kodak lesson. I don't know if you guys remember the cameras. Kodak camera, very popular, 70s, 80s, 90s. Number one, Kodak invented the digital camera back in 1975, but their leadership invested in the paper and film agenda. They refused to evolve. They hired and promoted for the old world, for how things were, what made them successful in the past, until the new world came and made them completely obsolete. This is what happens when we don't bring evolutionary employees into our workplace. At some point, your comfort is going to be your own destruction. How do we fix this problem? We need to implement challenge culture, KPIs for leaders. A manager's success should be measured not just for results or output, but also by how many bottom-up innovations they successfully champion and implement, and how many contributions from his or her team created that difference as well. Because let's not forget that it's not only your idea, but the best ideas and solutions come from your own team if you learn how to listen, and if you experiment, and if you get the data later, if what you implemented brought efficiency. You're loving the Ethics Guild podcast? Don't want to miss any new episodes? Want to be part of our panel and be our guest? Subscribe, leave us a comment, be part of the community of the Ethics Guild podcast. We need more people we need people that are brave to speak up for what's right, to stand for justice and dignity. Become one of us. Be part of the Ethics Guild podcast community, and let's journal to endless possibility where we all become one. Don't forget, subscribe.